Hey everybody, it's Safi and Marco, dish out on the movies. And this is round 2 of our review of It Part 2 because something happened to our video and it disappeared.
Yeah, for some reason, I put the video. What I do is I upload the video on this film editing app, and then I put a picture over it since apparently you for something that you listen to you want to have a picture on it anyway, and so I put a picture on there, and for some reason it didn't save. The video didn't save, and I went to delete the original because that's what I always do. It takes so much space, and then it deleted on both things for no reason.
Okay, well, right to it. The cast. I won't go through the whole cast list, but will say how excited I was to see Bill Skarsgård as Pennywise again, Bill Hader as Richie Tozier, and James McAvoy as Bill Denbrough. Since this is a non-spoiler review, I don't think I would be giving anything away by revealing that Mike Hanlon's older version of himself is Isaiah Mustafa. Now, who is that? Well, he's the guy from the Old Spice commercials who used to be a football player. I thought he looked familiar, and Google confirmed it. The movie. Basically, the theme of It Too is after 27 years, Pennywise comes back to kill. How do we know things are getting rotten in Derry, Maine? Because Mike has lived there this entire time in the library. And you say, well, so what? A lot of people go to the library and study or read or whatever for hours on end. How does that do anything? Well, he is actually the librarian and the caretaker who lives in the library in the attic. He spent all of his time researching everything he can about Pennywise and the history of Derry. He's also kind of been monitoring the police reports and activity to see if there's been any killings that are unusual and not inexplicable. He also, in his research, discovered a Native American tribal group who lived outside Derry many years ago and who discovered a ritual to get rid of the clown. Or maybe. So what happens is a terrible incident happens. And like I said, he's been monitoring police reports, and this incident is so bad that he decides it's time to call the adults who were the kids from the Losers Club, and he tells each one to return to Derry ASAP because it's time for them to follow through on the promise they made to each other that if that guy showed up again or whatever it is, they needed to take down the clown menace again. If you've seen the old version of It, which is worth it just to see Tim Curry play Pennywise so you could make a comparison or just enjoy his performance, you'll know one of the adults can't take it and commits suicide. So I don't believe it's a spoiler if you've read the book or seen the older version of the movie. I won't say which person it is.
I'll give you a hint. It's the least interesting person, the least interesting kid from the first one.
Okay, but the circumstances of the suicide in this movie are a little different than how it was previously done before. Basically, when Mike calls everyone, we get to see each kid, who's now an adult, their reactions to his phone calls, which are very kind of drawn out because you're seeing what their life is like, what they're doing in a small way, but you still get a good look. And then they come, except for and then they come to Derry, and what happens next? Do they finally get rid of Pennywise? Or is he like Michael Myers and never dies? unfortunately, the latter may be true. It's just my opinion. It just seemed like at the end, or near the end, unless I'm mistaken, one of the actors hinted that thing near the end of the movie where he could show up again. Because I did say every 27 years, but of course, if they're all about 40 or something and it's 27 years later, that I don't know who's going to be around and who's going to be well enough to take on a demon clown.
That's one of my least favorite parts of the mythology is the fact I hate it whenever there's some sort of a creature or person and they come back every certain amount of years, like Jeepers Creepers. I don't like that either, and because it kind of feels like the whole story is pointless, and this movie kind of remedies that. But I would have preferred it if he didn't come back every 23 years, but if he had lived for those 1,000 years or 100 years or whatever, and then it took him 27 years to hibernate. Like maybe since he got damaged for the first time in the first one, that he needed that 27 years to heal himself. But I do not like the aspect that he's a creature who just reappears every 27 years, because it feels like they could make endless movies with that premise, because we all know how much they like to make sequels that they don't need to make.
Okay, well,
do you agree with that?
Yeah, I do. And like I said, I wasn't even thinking about this before, but since our podcast messed up and we had to redo it, then I had time to think a little bit more about the movie, and if they did come back in 27 years, how old they would be, and it just wouldn't be the same. And
they
so
talked
what does
about
that mean?
that
Their
in the movie.
Children, their grandchildren.
They talked about that. They said one of them suggested they should just come back in another 27 years, because, like, why should they have to risk their lives right now since they're in a nice place in their life? Cough, cough. But then one of them jokes, "Oh, we'd be over in our 70s."
Yes, they would. So, I was going to talk about how the movie is kind of like one big metaphor, like an onion. So every time something happens, a part peels away until you get to the final part, the center, which is the characters facing up to the monster. Like somebody, Marco, saw compared it to like a video game where you get to the final boss, which is really, it's true. That is like what it is.
But the whole rest of the movie was just one level.
Yeah, and I think the problem, I guess, that everybody had with it, but it wasn't for Marco and myself, is that they focus a lot on each character, which I'm talking about the losers, and they go back into time, and you see them, and they go to now, and when they spend that much time on each individual, which I don't mind really, but that draws the movie out. That's why it's rather lengthy. And so I do want to say this spoiler, and it's not going to be a problem for anybody. I don't think it would be a welcome problem. I think Stephen King is in this movie, and he wasn't in the kids part, but he makes a nice appearance. I always think he does well. I like when he's in the movie. So Bill Hader's and Bill Skarsgård. I jumped ahead. Sorry. So I think I'll let. Okay. One more thing. So what was hilarious, I thought, was the references, like I'm talking about Stephen King, to James McAvoy, or what did we say, Ben? Whose character?
No, not Ben. Which character? Which person are you talking about?
James McAvoy's character.
Bill Denborough.
Oh, so I did have Bill. Okay, I thought.
Yeah, you messed that up. You messed that up. She messed that up the first time too. I was like, "That's the fat kid." And you were like, "Oh."
Yeah, sorry. So, Anyway, his character's an author now. And so his wife, and they show him before he gets informed about Pennywise, that his wife and all these other people, they don't like the endings to his books. And Stephen King, as his character in the movie, even tells him in a scene, he says the same thing about a certain book, that he didn't like the ending. And I found that hilarious, and this is more of a personal thing because Marco here is always saying he doesn't like the endings to Stephen King's books. And he doesn't like the endings to Stephen King's movies.
Well, he doesn't know how to end them properly. And we found that out with Thinner. They filmed Stephen King's ending. Audiences hated it. And so Tom Holland had to change it to make it a good ending.
So I just thought that was funny, and I thought that this was deliberate, that King said this, and the director put this all in the sequence because they were making a reference to Stephen King's own books in real life. So Marco, take it away. What do you think about everything?
Well, it's all your fault, Safi, because you kind of set this movie up for failure. When we when we reviewed the first movie, I thought that the first movie was actually pretty good because it had some of those adult horror elements. It felt like it was trying to push away the horrible new, horrible modern horror aspects, like the stupid jump scares that no one gets scared by, and no one likes them and thinks they're annoying, obnoxious, and all and the stereotype characters and all that kind of stuff. That's what you get with modern horror, and the horrible CGI and all that. But then with the first I mean, you have those great moments like the beginning where you get to see that little boy get his entire arm bitten off. I wanted to cheer when he got his arm bitten off. I was like, yeah, keep biting him to death and chew everything and put it on screen so that we can get some real horror. And like, I love the first in some of those moments. And like the Henry, the bully, when he goes crazy and he sees Pennywise on television, and he takes that switchblade and he stabs his father in the neck and there's blood everywhere, and then he goes outside to kill his friends too. That was so cool. Of course, they did cut away both of those scenes that I just talked about. But Safi told me that the first one couldn't be that adult because they're a bunch of kids, and so you can't make it that adult. Which I know you couldn't do some of the stuff that's in the book, but still, them being kids is not an excuse. But I took Safi's word for it, and the second one is actually even more kiddier than the first. The second one is like a cartoon, it's like a kid's movie, it's so babyish at some points. The most, quote, horrifying moments come from people violence. And even that's not scary. There's two human violence scenes in this movie. Well, actually, kind of three-ish, if you count the one with Michael J. Fox, who, by the way, Henry is all grown up now, and the guy who plays him looks like Michael J. Fox. He does not look like the kid Henry, and so they did kind of a poor casting job with that. But the human violence is so over the top, like pound, 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 all this like graphic blood, and it's just so like mind numbing that it's really reminiscent of Kick-Ass 2. Kick-Ass 2 has these like ultra violent scenes, but it doesn't feel real. It just feels really staged and over the top. And that's what the violence in this movie feels like. That's what everything in this movie feels like. Over the top, in your face, not effective. And what about the jump scares, Safi? How many times in this movie are you sitting there and then just something pops out, and there's a loud noise, and it's just so irritating. How many times, Safi?
Well, all throughout the movie.
The whole movie. Whereas with the first one, uh, there were less jump scares. They were all still stupid, annoying, and all should have been taken out of the movie. But this movie's even worse, and it's a terrible movie. But it is very entertaining. That's the little exception. It's extremely entertaining at certain points, and it's a fun movie to watch. It's so bad that you just want to laugh at stuff. You just want to laugh at the stuff that they think is scary, like these stupid CGI monster things that they think, oh, people are gonna get scared by this. Like, no, sorry, it's hilariously bad. And what do you think, Safi? Since you're sitting here about to fall asleep.
No, I'm not. I'm just thinking about what you're saying.
And that's what we were like in the movie too. Like there were some points in the movie where we just wanted to go to sleep because like over half of this movie is them cutting back to them as kids in these unneeded sort of weird flashbacks that don't make any sense.
Yeah, the kids had, you think you're really not going to see them maybe in the beginning or something, but there's quite, I mean, it's just all the way through actually, and even in the end, there's a huge section with the kids. And so they got paid for that too, so good on them. Well, I like most of the movie. There were a few things that irritated me. Um, and it was entertaining, and I told Marco that it was intense.
Yeah, that was the first thing she said. She said, that was intense!
Well, the problem is, and I feel bad because I told somebody on Facebook, they wanted to know if that it'd be okay if their 9-year-old daughter was there, that they were used to seeing horror movies. I said, yeah, pretty much. And just like Marco said about the jump scares aren't scary. I'm sorry, I wasn't scared at all. The thing about jump scares for me is, especially they had so many, is because of the way it's set up, you know that it's coming, so your mind is set, it's prepared, so they're not scary. The thing, and what I thought was, and he didn't seem to bother him, or that there was two human incidents in the beginning. I mean, they were boom, 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 and there was a car wreck, which I had like a little flash of PTSD because I had a car wreck in December, and so I almost got sick. So I had to get over that because it didn't have anything to do with anything except, I'll just say it was one of the characters' reactions to getting the phone call from Derry to go back and kill the clown. So, like I said, they focus on each one and the reactions to the call, which is very interesting. But anyway, there's these two, and I thought those were the scariest, most violent, and Marco did speak to the violence, worst things in the movie, and that was people on people, which could happen any day. It has nothing to do with the monster.
They weren't that violent. They were very dimly lit to where you couldn't even tell what was going on.
Yeah, but because...
And it was very over the top and staged.
Well,
it did not seem real at all.
It did to me, I didn't like it.
And then you go to the book and find out that one of the scenes isn't even portrayed as it is in the book. And in the book, it actually sounds very realistic and scary.
Well,
the scene at the beginning.
The thing is, people might object to me not liking like this violence, but and it was part of the movie. I just didn't care for it. But you can't say, there's no way when you're looking at adults, let's say 25 kids, and as adults in 27 years. No, nobody's life is perfect, and not everybody's going to have this perfect storybook life. So it would be unrealistic to see that, but they're not all to do with those kids. They're to do with innocent people in the movie. So anyway, like Marco said, there are lots of jump scares, which I didn't care for. The biggest thing was the music, and I've been in an orchestra. I played in a panpipe band. I've been part of really good music, so music's really important to me. And for a movie, music can really help set an atmosphere. These jump scares, they don't really set. They're just almost when you have so many too, it almost makes it laughable. It may be entertaining, but it's just not. You can't take it seriously. And music is something that you hear. Just think of Jaws or uh, um, Psycho or Jurassic Park. You have this fine music, and it brings a mood, or an atmosphere, or it sets up
or
something.
A most recent James McAvoy movie, Dark Phoenix. That movie's music was actually the best part of the movie, but the music in this movie, it felt extremely manipulative and just this horrible sound, this loud noise that just wouldn't stop. Like, there's no subtlety in this movie, even with the music. The music is just constantly ruining everything it can. There's no instance in this movie, literally none, where I can say that the music did anything to help the movie.
No.
The music
or the mood.
If you took out all the music in this movie, I would like it even more, because the music just ruins all these moments that could have had a little bit of subtlety to them, and they just try to manipulate you into, like, oh, you gotta be scared at this moment because we're playing this dun 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 dun, like this rising tension music. Just terrible.
Okay, well, so the cast, I thought James McAvoy did an excellent job. I think he can do anything. I saw him on Saturday Night Live, and he just put his heart and soul into it, and he made it so much better. And then that's just one example. I've seen him in other things too, and then Bill Hader, who was on Interview, he says nothing scares him, and when it does, he does this weird thing. He smiles instead, and the director had to stop some of the scenes and admonish him because he didn't look like he was acting scared enough. And so I guess he developed this persona of being, when he finds out about Pennywise being back, he starts acting really uptight.
Yeah, instead of having a very scared reaction, he has a nothing reaction.
Well, it's just he's like wound up and nervous and uptight, and then the adult version of Ben Hanscom, that's the heavyweight boy. He's played by a guy named Jay Ryan, who's an actor from New Zealand, and I thought just something about, he's really different now. He lifts weights, probably. He's in really good physical shape.
And that's the point of his character.
And he seemed like a soap star to me, or like a Hallmark movie main character. And there's nothing against either one of those things. He just reminded me of those characters so much. So I did look him up, and he has acted in an Australian soap opera, so I was right. So, go ahead, Marco. You want to say anything?
My least favorite adults were Jessica Chastain and Hallmark movie guy. Because, and it all stemmed from the first scene with the Hallmark movie guy. Because it's a very Hallmark movie type of a scene. Right, Safi? You gotta admit that, like, you have this successful businessman.
Yeah, he's very successful.
And everything's
and
just
he's single.
What?
He's single. He's not married.
Sure?
Yeah.
Didn't he have a girlfriend?
Well,
some sort of
that doesn't matter. He's single.
Some random hot girlfriend in the background wandering around. No, okay, no, he didn't. but it's just so strange. And he didn't really have any character to him besides the fact that he's the perfect guy, and that he, I don't know, that he wants to be with Jessica Chastain, even
He always
though,
has.
yeah, well,
And that's a big, that's a
weird.
little chunk of the movie.
No, it's not.
Yes,
It's hardly in the movie.
with the card thing
It,
that he wrote.
it's hardly in the movie. The only moment where I really liked it, when you probably didn't even notice it, but in the Chinese restaurant scene, James McAvoy and Jessica Chastain are like sitting there talking, and you can see in the background the quote perfect Hallmark guy. He's staring at them, and he's like looking at them in the background. I really like that scene was probably the best scene that he had, and, and that's an insult because like the character, I think his character was much better in the original miniseries, and he was played by John Ritter as an adult, which
Oh, okay.
you can't beat John Ritter, especially when you have this Hallmark guy who just isn't convincing, and then Jessica Chastain, she's just bland, and I warned people too. I said she doesn't look anything like the younger version of the character, and she doesn't act anything like her. She acts, actually, in this movie, she acts more like an alien than she did in Dark Phoenix when she was an alien. In Dark Phoenix, an alien possesses her body, and that's the villain the whole movie.
Hmm.
And she was more of an alien in this movie because she just did not. And to be fair, she didn't have any standout scene. Every single character in the adults had a standout scene except for Mike, her, and the Hallmark guy. So it's really the fact that they didn't get a standout scene where you could really see that they were that character, and especially hers and the Hallmark guy. They got their quote standout scene, but it didn't stand out because it was just so over the top, and they were connected, and this movie itself, it felt very disjointed and disconnected. There were a lot of plots in this movie that went nowhere. There was one specific plot that I was very excited to see what would happen, and then right in the middle of what's happening, it cuts away. Remember that scene? The
Fair scene.
well, don't give it away.
I'll just say
But
the
it,
fair.
it just ends. It's such a cool sequence. It's probably the best part of the movie, and it just ends. And you're like, oh, are they cutting away? And then they're going to cut back? No, it just ends.
Yeah, they chopped it off. So I'm ready to compare my uh, review it. And the way we review movies, I'll remind people, is that we compare it to foods that we have eaten or meals or whatever to be different. And then when we review a trailer, we do that in terms of grades. And so, anyway, are you ready, Marco, to do that? You want me to do mine first?
Go ahead.
Okay, well, I reviewed it as compared to our Christmas Eve Swedish dinner. Now, we have a multi-course Swedish dinner because on my husband's side of the family, they did this, and I thought, okay, because we didn't have anything. We had the usual turkey and mashed potatoes and gravy on Christmas Day. We didn't do anything special on Christmas Eve. Well, they did something different. So anyway, I thought that was great. So one of the main course components we eat is pickled herring. That's my favorite. And rum pudding, which is my second favorite. They stand for James McAvoy, Isaiah Mustafa, Bill Hader's, and Bill Skarsgård's performances especially, and along with all the kids from the first movie who were actually in this movie quite a bit. Then there were the things I didn't care for at all in our Christmas Eve meal, which is the potato sausage. That is the soundtrack. Yuck.
What about the limp of bread?
well, that's everything else. There's nothing more to say about the music. I already said that. I'm just picking out the main ingredients. If you want to know the whole meal, I could say it real quick, but let me just say the rest of this. Then there's the ham, which represents the scares, which sometimes the ham is either good or bad, just like the scares. They're either, when I say bad or good, good means really scary, or bad, which means I just sit there and have no reaction at all. And imagine myself saying to the director, "Is this it? Is this all you have?" So it was entertaining though, and so that will be the rest of the Christmas meal. There's the beans, brown. They call it brown beans. There's beets, pickled beets, and limpa bread, and bondos cheese, which is just a plain old kind of farmer's cheese. And then there's the what's that jelly that's
It doesn't matter.
the special berry jelly that very rare. It's only they only grow at a certain time of the year in Scandinavia. So that would be the rest of the movie because it's good. I can put up with it for a few days. Oh, there's also Swedish meatballs too. That's real important. Marco likes that the most. And so it's very funny that I compare this movie to our Swedish Eve dinner because the guy who plays Pennywise is acted by a Swedish actor. Okay, Marco, let's hear your food review.
Well, I don't know if it's the director's fault that the scares are laughably bad, because it does seem like this movie was ruined by studio interference. It is entirely possible that with the first one, the studio said, "Oh, you can do whatever you want as long as you put some jump scares in there," because jump scares are scary. But then with this movie, it feels like since the first one was so successful that they said, "Oh, okay, you gotta have this, and now you gotta have this. Oh, you want to do practical effects? No, well, that's too expensive. We gotta do these lazy PS2 graphic special effects like in Black Panther, and stuff like that." It feels very much like this was not made by the same person who made the first movie, because the first movie has some very good moments and felt like a breath of old but good fresh air in the horror genre of the now dead horror genre. And so, Safi. But the other thing I wanted to mention, there's a running joke in this movie that Safi mentioned about bad endings.
Mm-hmm.
This would have been the greatest thing of all time in this movie if it was actually true, because it's so weird that they mention the whole movie, oh, King's endings Stephen King's endings suck, and then they end up just doing the exact same thing Stephen King did in the book. And so how is that what are you trying to do? Are you just because you say that the ending sucks means that it's okay to make a shitty ending? Seriously?
Mm-hmm.
Like, it would have been fine if they had actually changed the ending and made it really good, but they didn't. They just kept it the same as the book, basically. And so that was very disappointing, especially after so many times that joke is thrown out there. And so my rating is the Chinese restaurant scene. Safi is very envious of this ending, of me using this ending, because it's a great idea. In the Chinese restaurant, they're at this table and they have this like turntable with Chinese food on it.
It's called a Lazy Susan. That's what a round table that circles around
So they have food on a turntable, and on each different plate, like vegetables, chicken, beef, probably shrimp, and they all have their own plates, and they get to spin the table around and grab whatever food they want and put it on their plate and
Which
their
is
own
nice.
like customized meal. And I love that. But that reminded me of this movie. Since this movie has so many different plots, this movie really feels like a TV show finale. And it feels like a bunch of different writers, or maybe, in this case, a bunch of different students. You know what? This is perfect. Stanley represents. Oh, wait, I just gave it away. Spoiler alert. Uh, Spoiler alert, everybody. Stanley is the one who killed himself, and he represents, which, you should already know that by now. He represents the director because it really feels like the director killed himself and the studio took over and made a horrible movie. And it feels like all the different plates at the table are these different shitty studio heads' plots for the movie, and they're all like, just different. They don't make any sense together. They're not the same thing. They're not a part of the same meal on the same plate, and so it just does not work. And so that's what this movie is. And you know what? It reminds me a lot of Stephen King's miniseries. I mean, you could just go down the list and create like a checklist of the stuff that's in his TV movies: alcohol, over drinking alcohol, domestic violence, horrible CGI,
Bullies.
bullies, characters coming back from the dead to haunt people. And it especially reminded me of a certain plot. And then the dessert is the fortune cookie bowl, because they're sweet at first, but it just keeps ending, and so it feels like you're just shoving fortune cookies into your mouth, and it's one's good enough, but then it's just just too much. Why are you doing that, Safi? And so you're just shoving fortune cookies into your mouth, and that feels like all the different endings just constantly. Oh, we can't end it yet. We have to do this. Another fortune cookie. Oh, that's not the true ending. Here we go. Another fortune cookie, and it just feels too much. And it does not feel like it should have felt, which is a very adult movie. The director himself said in an interview, this movie is so scary you're going to need diapers. I beg to differ.
No.
This movie was so bad and hilarious that I was trying not to laugh because I didn't want to disrupt other people's viewing experiences. No one else jumped in the theater, by the way. We were all just sitting there like, is this it? I mean, you jumped at the car wreck, but that wasn't a jump scare. I'm talking about the scares that they thought were going to be really scary. We didn't jump at all. We thought it was stupid. And this whole movie is just another example of why horror is dead and why modern horror is a huge failure. But I will say, James McAvoy, the guy who played Mike, Bill Hader, the guy who played Eddie, they did a fantastic job in their parts, and Pennywise did a fantastic job too, but Pennywise was hardly in the movie. Pennywise was like in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 scenes maybe out of the whole movie. All the rest of the things in the movies are just these horribly done CGI monsters. So, anyways, that's it, Safi.
Okay, well, Marco will be doing the spoiler review, or just going through the spoilers, although he gave one away, and I was really good about not doing it. He's always getting mad at me, so...
Well, it happens in like the first 5 minutes of the TV miniseries.
Yeah.
I mean, you should pretty much know by now.
Well, truthfully, I did not know who. I knew it was a guy, but that's all I knew. I didn't know who it was going to be. But anyway, Mark will be doing that by himself because he's got a better memory than me. I am a writer and I also research, so I like to take notes. And when I see a movie like that, it's really hard to remember everything because I can't take notes during the movie. I tried to do that in the dark once, it didn't work. So anyway, he's better. Not his memory is better at that. So he'll be doing it. And so bye everybody.
I'm gonna see 3 from Hell tonight, and I'll have my review for 3 from Hell out tomorrow. The spoiler review will be out on Thursday, part of it. Friday will be Rambo Last Blood, although it probably won't be the Last Blood, out on Friday, and then on Saturday, the second half of the spoiler review will be up. So goodbye, everybody!
Bye.